Principles of user experience, UX, design, navigation, consistency, simplicity, interactivity, accessibility, and feedback. Now, a program's UX relates to how users feel when using a system. Ultimately, systems are developed to evoke specific feelings from its users, such as to be entertained, to feel productive, or to feel satisfied in whatever they're trying to achieve with that system. Consideration of UX is paramount in system development as systems need to evoke positive feelings in their users in hopes for their applications to be accessed on repeat occasions by those same users, but also be recommended to other users as well in order to expand the client base of the system. Now, I'm going to start going through these UX features, but it's important to realize that UX is heavily influenced by user interface. UI principles, and you're going to see some overlap between what I'm talking about now and a previous video I made on user interface. But understand there is a relationship between the two, that UI affects UX, and we do certain things in UI interfaces in order to support UX design. So let's get into the UX principles. Firstly, we've got user-centered design. A system should prioritize end users throughout the design process to be tailored to a specific target audience as well as providing a specific feel. We know who our target audience is, and that's at the core of why we're developing the system. And that's in the context of interactive media systems too. There are systems that are developed to be machine-centered, where we're focusing on the processing of the machine and it processing things functioning, and kind of humans are thought as the second rate there. But in the context of interactive media systems, with UX design, we're looking at who is our target audience, what's going to make them use our system efficiently, what's going to make them enjoy or be satisfied with our system. The next area is that of navigations. Systems that are easy to use, learn, and navigate. By doing so, they reduce the learning curve and make the using experience much more intuitive. All right, things need to be consistent between interfaces so that users can find their way around the system. So, especially navigational elements that allow users to go between interfaces, they should be in almost consistent places always, whether that be at the top of the screen or on the sidebar on the screen. Users can always find those important tools that they are looking for to get to their interfaces that they want within a larger system. So navigation is paramount in good user experience. Users need to know where they're going, and if they can find it with ease, they will be happier. The next area is that of consistency, which we kind of said in relation to navigation. Things need to be in the same place between the different screens of the system. So maintaining uniformity in visual elements, functionalities, and terminology across the system to prevent confusion and support user navigation. So it's not just that things are laid out consistently, the colors we're using within the system, the fonts we're using in the system, give an overall consistent feel that we're doing the same thing or we're in the same kind of world within the system. It's not like I'm jumping between two different programs when I go between two different interfaces. The next area is that of simplicity, using basic design to avoid overwhelming users with unnecessary information or actions, making system interaction straightforward and efficient. In a way, if we just think about slideshows, and you might even criticize the way I do these videos with what I'm about to say, but it's probably better to have less information across multiple slides than lots of information than on one slide. Okay, simple is easier to digest with little information being delivered, supported by media on those screens. It's easier and more satisfying for a user to read. And then they can navigate through the multiple interfaces, obviously with a more pleasurable, simple interface in front of them, and obviously a more simple experience for them in order to obtain that information from the system. Okay, especially if we're targeting key points with what we're trying to get across to the user within this system. The next area is that of interactivity, how users engage with the system through their peripheral devices, so their mouse, their keyboard, or use of touchscreen. All right, or it even could be a VR headset. It's all really changing a lot these days with the changes in technology peripherals. Systems also need to respond accordingly to the user input, providing a satisfying and engaging experience to keep their users' attention. So if it is pointing and clicking, what does that button do when once clicked on, in response to the user's click? Is it interesting? Does it make the user want to click more buttons? Okay, with VR, when the user turns their head and the accelerometers pick up on that movement, how does the actual movement register within the program? What does it actually do? So interactivity is really a big part of user experience right now, because we now are creating these software applications that allow users to give their data to the system, but then to get feedback from it, which can support creating entertaining systems that users can interact with. The next area is that of contextual design, a scenario in which the system will be used. Okay, so this includes the environment, what devices they might be using, or whether the actual system needs to satisfy their user's specific needs. So we are designing solutions that fit the user's situation seamlessly. So this might be if it's a system being developed for people specifically in their workplace. There is a context there. So it's got to suit their workplace environment, particularly on a device that might be given to them by their workplace, and their needs are to do their daily work tasks on that system. So we've got to understand the user's context when they're accessing the system. It could be open to a specific target audience, and the context is we want people to enjoy purchasing our product and get an enjoyable experience from our product. But yes, it could also be in specific environments to support users accomplishing specific tasks, and it's got to meet those contexts. The next area is that of accessibility. And what we're talking about here is that the systems are accessible to people with a wide range of abilities, ensuring that everyone can access a system regardless of their physical or cognitive abilities. So if they have any form of disability, are there tools that we can embed into the system that can modify the way information is presented to support that user experience? Whether that be being able to zoom or enlarge text to make it easier to read, or the use of text to audio to make it that the text is spoken to a user who can't read well, or even translation tools within programs, which are becoming a lot better with software applications now to actually change the language of the actual information that is within a program. So a whole variety of accessibility tools are there, and by embedding them, it grows the amount of audience your system can have because you're breaking down barriers to communication that can get in the way of users accessing your system. The final area we'll talk about is that of feedback and response time. We've already mentioned interactivity, and a good system acknowledges that it's almost like a conversation with the user. They give their input, the system responds. The user sees the response and then they give their further input. Even if you're just thinking of a video game, when you play a video game, when you press left, you want to see your character go left. Okay, and then something happens on screen and it comes at your character to the left, so you're going to go right. So we need to see appropriate feedback within the system. So providing immediate and clear feedback for actions to keep users informed about the system's responsiveness to their inputs. And even as I said before, even if it's just clicking on a button on the screen, users need to see that that button was acknowledged by the system. So it lights up or it makes a sound or something happens to show that button was clicked. And that is then a satisfying experience for the user because they know their inputs are being registered and hopefully the system is doing what they wanted to do. So I hope this video has given you a bit of an understanding of the different principles of user experience, of UX design, essentially how we customize a feel of a software application we are developing towards users, being that we have specific user-centered design for our specific target audience and we take into account their context, that we've got elements of navigation that have buttons in similar places and they are consistent in design that makes our whole software application feel like one entire entity. Though in saying that, we're incorporating features of simplicity to make things easy to find and understand. And then in these modern times too, factoring in elements such as interactivity, so to make our experiences more engaging when users use software applications, and accessibility tools to open up our audience to many users based on all their varying degrees of abilities.